Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak on Bill S-5, the Financial System Review Act. S-5 is an important piece of legislation because it provides a framework to regulate financial products and services, helping to ensure the continued safety and security of our financial system that Canadians and their families depend on every day. Before continuing, by way of background, I would note that for the benefit of the House that today's legislation is the result of a mandated review. In Canada, financial sector legislation is subject to a full review on a 5-year cycle to ensure the stability of the sector, with the latest review completed in 2007. The current review began with a public and open consultation process in September 2010. Where all Canadians were invited to share their views on how to improve and strengthen our financial system. This practice sets Canada apart from almost every other country in the world and ensures that laws and regulations by which our financial systems are governed remain the safest and most secure anywhere. As a recent Ottawa Citizen editorial proclaimed, and I quote, "Our banking and financial system is the envy of the world. While the great money edifices of countries such as the U.S., Britain, and Switzerland cracked at the beginning of the recession, Canadian banks stood firm," end of quote. Or listen to what Forbes magazine added. Quote, "Canada has avoided many of the problems that currently bedevil the U.S. Mountains of public debt, a banking system in crisis, with no bailouts. It is the soundest financial system in the world, marked by a steady and responsible continuation of lending and profits," end of quote. Indeed, for the 4th year in a row, the World Economic Forum recently rated Canada's banking system the best in the world. And only days ago, an independent global organization known as the Financial Stability Board praised Canada's financial system, calling it a model for all countries. To quote the Financial Stability Board, "The strength of the economy and of the financial system at the onset of the crisis meant that no Canadian financial institution failed or required government support in the form of a capital injection or debt guarantees," end of quote. As the past few years have shown, international praise for our system is well-founded. While the global financial crisis resulted in nearly $2 trillion in losses for banks and insurance companies, Canada's banks stood solid, bolstered by sound risk management and supported by an effective regulatory and supervisory framework. In fact, Canada was the only country in the G7 that didn't have to bail out its major banks with taxpayer money, and in the aftermath of the 2008 financial crisis. Sorry, my apologies. Mr. Speaker, I believe I was to announce that I am splitting my time today with the member from Etobicoke Lakeshore. I apologize. This Canadian resilience matters. A strong financial sector plays a fundamental role in supporting a strong economy, and not just in times of crisis. Families, workers, retirees, and pensioners count on it for the security and growth of their deposits and investments, and to maintain the standard of living that they worked hard to build. Consumers rely on it for competitive financial products to keep their mortgages and other household financing affordable. And the businesses, large and small, also depend on it for access to competitive financing to allow them to invest and to grow. The financial crisis highlighted the importance of evaluating the overall size of financial institutions, their global linkages, and the impact of these factors on the best interests of Canada's financial system. The crisis also resulted in extensive changes in the regulatory framework, which continues to ensure that Canada is home to one of the safest and soundest financial sectors anywhere in the world. The Financial System Review Act will build on these reforms and fine-tune the efficiency and effectiveness of this framework. It will improve the ability of regulators to share information efficiently with their international counterparts. This will help to fulfill our G20 commitments at a time when financial institutions increasingly operate on a global scale and will ensure effective supervision and regulation across borders. The Act also recognizes the implications of global reform on Canadian banks. Since 2001, Canadian banks and their holdings have grown significantly. And the new Basel III capital standards in 2013 will further increase capital levels. Based on projections until 2017, the threshold defining a large bank will be raised to maintain the current policy. Today's Act increases the large bank ownership threshold from $8 billion to $12 billion. S-5 will also strengthen consumer protection for the financial sector, most notably by enhancing the supervisory powers of the Financial Consumer Agency of Canada, also known as the FCAC. The agency is mandated to ensure that federally regulated financial institutions adhere to the consumer provisions of the legislation governing financial institutions and their public commitments. FCAC is also the government's lead agency on financial education and literacy and has moved forward with an array of excellent initiatives in recent years. The agency has developed innovative tools to help Canadians plan their financial futures, like a mortgage calculator that quickly determines payments, as well as the potential savings which can be realized by paying early. It also publishes valuable information online to help consumers choose credit card and banking packages best suited to their own needs. S-5 also proposes to increase the maximum fine that can be levied by the agency for consumer protection violations to better protect Canadians. Finally, the Financial System Review Act will build on this government's ongoing actions to cut red tape by proposing to reduce the administrative burden on financial institutions and increase regulatory flexibility. This includes eliminating duplicative disclosure requirements and allowing limited testimonial immunity for federal officials to enhance operational efficiencies. These measures will contribute to a well-functioning financial system that meets the needs of Canadians and supports our future economic prosperity. Mr. Speaker, today's legislation is important because it concerns one of the key foundations of the global economy. Canada's financial sector plays a pivotal role in fostering financial stability, in safeguarding the savings of Canadians, and in fueling the economic growth that is essential to our standard of living. We also recognize that Canada's financial sector is a critical component of the Canadian economy, employing over 750,000 Canadians in well-paying jobs. What's more, the sector represents about 7% of Canada's total GDP. As the Canadian Life and Health Insurance Association declared during the Senate's consideration of this important legislation, prompt passage of the bill will ensure the legislative stability and continuity that are so important to the financial services sector. End of quote. Updates to the financial legislative framework will continue to ensure that Canada's financial institutions operate in a competitive, efficient, and stable environment, and will help Canada maintain its well-earned reputation as a global leader in financial services. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Questions and comments? The honourable member from Sherbrooke, St. Charles.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Alors, on sait que le système financier a su bien se tirer de la dernière crise. Du moins, nos citoyens n'ont pas dû remettre la clé de leur maison, comme ce fut le cas au Sud. Et on sait aussi que nos épargnes sont sécurisées, ils sont même protégés. Donc, c'est excellent pour les familles de pouvoir compter sur un système de banque qui protège les petits épargnants. Donc, on sait par exemple que si une banque est en difficulté, la SADC protège jusqu'à la concurrence de 50 000 $ nos placements. Alors, c'est excellent. Maintenant, ce qu'on se demande de ce côté-ci de la Chambre, et j'aimerais poser la question à l'honorable député, c'est pourquoi n'allons pas plus loin. Par exemple, dans notre plateforme électorale, le NPD demandait un plafonnement des cartes de crédit. Alors, pourquoi on n'insère pas ce genre de choses-là pour encore aider plus les familles?
Honourable member from, sorry, was it
Don Valley West.
Don Valley West.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And thank you to the honourable member for her question. I think at the root of today's discussion and debate is the foundational principle that Canada's banking system and financial institutions are the strongest in the world, as recognized by those that I've identified in my presentation. Earlier today in debate, the parliamentary secretary was asked whether, when the bill gets to committee, will there be opportunity for members to, in fact, bring recommendations to consumer protection and deal with issues such as credit cards and the like. And she responded at that time that that was the case and that she encouraged open debate and discussion on ways in which we might strengthen what is already a very, very good system. Thank you for the
honourable member from Calgary Centre North.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm pleased to hear my colleague talk about this bill because it recognizes the fact that Canada does have one of the soundest banking systems in the world. I think Canada's been recognized as having the soundest banking system in the world by the World Economic Forum for now 4 years in a row. What we often hear from our colleagues opposite is that they want to raise taxes on job-creating companies. Our government has implemented a low-tax plan to create jobs and economic growth, but also to ensure that we have a sound financial system. I'm hoping my colleague opposite could tell us a bit more about how this bill enhances the work that our government has done to ensure a sound financial system.
Thank you. The member from Don Valley West.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you to my colleague. Foundational in everything we do as a government is job creation and economic growth. And at the root of that is certainly our financial system is one of the strongest in the world, as we've heard today, and will continue to be. And so to that, we expect that with this debate, we will we'll take this bill forward to fine-tuning, and we'll take what is already a very strong financial system with good governance, good regulations, and make it even stronger. Thank you.
Questions?